Welcome to the Ogles channel. Thanks for watching today. Let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy and Game Boy Color game. And today we're going to focus on a game called Yoshi. Now, Yoshi was released on the NES as well as the Game Boy at exactly the same time. And truth be told, it's pretty much the exact same game except for the difference in color. But I have a really fond memory of the Yoshi game growing up because me and my brother, we used to rent it from the local drugstore all the time as kids. And that's where we used to rent our video games for the most part. We were out in the middle of nowhere, so there was no like Blockbuster Video or Hollywood Video or Family Video. All we had was the local drugstore that also carried some video games we could rent. And Yoshi was one that we rented pretty often down there. And it was always an intense competition between me and my brother to see who could actually beat the other one in the multiplayer mode. And eventually when the drugstore sold off all their NES games, me and my brother, we purchased the Yoshi game. And I still love the game to this day. But as high as my opinion was of the NES version, I never actually had the Game Boy version. So going through it this time was my very first time going through the Game Boy version. And trust me, all the skills and all the techniques, they transfer over completely. So today, let's just go ahead and jump into and play through and finish Yoshi. Now, I always like to start the videos off by looking at the box art for the game first. And as we look at the box art for Yoshi, I mean, it really doesn't describe what the game's going to be about, like at all. It just simply shows Yoshi on there, all the little Mario villains that you're going to basically stack up in a little puzzle game here, and the Yoshi egg exploding because you do hatch a bunch of Yoshis throughout the game. So, I mean, like, the concept is there, but like it doesn't tell you at all what the game's going to be about. And truth be told, you could probably think this is like a action platformer based upon like having a Mario game, you know, Yoshi and all the Mario games. But I guess it does say down at the bottom, pure puzzle panic. So I guess you know it's not a platformer. But anyway, it's a pretty cool looking cover. I just don't think it like describes the game perfectly well. But then you start to come up here and you got this awesome little tile screen here. You got adult Yoshi off to the left hand side, baby Yoshi hatching out of his egg to the right hand side. And I've always loved the expression that baby Yoshi has on his face here because he's like already disappointed in what life has brought to him and he just hatched out of his egg. He's like looking around like, is this it? Did I hatch out for this? And I also like to think like, how'd he go from being such a smug, disappointed little baby Yoshi to this happy-go-lucky adult Yoshi? I don't know, I'm reading way too much into the title screen here, but as a kid, I always was fascinated with the expression of baby Yoshi. Now, it's also on the title screen here, we're going to notice a very important detail that's missing from it, and that's going to be the developer of the game. You would think that Nintendo developed and published this game, but Nintendo actually just published the game. The game was developed by a very small company at the time, who becomes very important in just a few years after this, and it's going to be Game Freak. So people who made Pokemon originally made Yoshi, and from what I've read at least, they used Yoshi somewhat to like fund their project to get Pokemon off the ground a little bit later. So we might not even have Pokemon if we didn't have this Yoshi puzzle game, which is just mind-blowing to think about. This little puzzle game that no one really seemed to care a whole lot about, or at least in my circle of friends anyway, gave birth to one of the greatest franchises of all time. And there's actually going to be some similarities between the two, not gameplay-wise or graphics-wise, but just simply soundtrack-wise. There are going to be a lot of songs in Yoshi that sound like they could be lifted like directly out of Pokemon. And I'm going to show an example here in just a little bit of like almost note for note, it's the same song as a Pokemon song. But when you begin the game here, you get very much of a standard menu screen for puzzle-type games. They give you options for like background music, speed, which level you want to start on, as well as like game type. And game type varies between different puzzle games, but in Yoshi in particular, game type A is going to be just simply where you play the game endlessly. There's never an end to it. There's never like levels to divide anything up. It's just simply you play until you die and you try to get a high score. So for our purposes of trying to finish the game, A doesn't really apply a whole lot to us. But game type B, you pretty much go through all the levels in the game. And there are infinite number of levels in the game. However, the prizes for beating the level stop changing after level 28. So our goal is simply going to be to get through level 28. Simple as that. I also choose to start at the very beginning, which is level 1 here. I choose the speed as low, just simply because that was the default speed. When it comes down to the music here, all three of the background music are going to be pretty fantastic. But I ended up going with the star theme, just because it reminds me so much of the Pokemon Center music from Pokemon Red and Blue. Just listen to them back to back here. I can't help but think the music from Yoshi here inspired the Pokemon Center music, because it's just way too similar in my opinion. But we're finally ready to start the actual puzzle game itself, and when you start the game up, it's a very simple puzzle game. You basically have all these little tiles of Mario enemies stuck inside of them, and they just simply journey down the screen 2 at a time. And your entire goal is just simply to match 2 enemies on top of each other in order to make them disappear. It doesn't count if they're diagonal or horizontal, they have to be on top of each other vertical in order for them to disappear, and you sort of basically have Mario down at the bottom rotating the tiles back and forth for your columns in order to get the tiles to actually line up as they're coming down the screen here. Now this itself is a very simple aspect to the game, but there is one more feature that makes it a true Yoshi game of sorts, and that's where Yoshi comes into play. Because in addition to all the little enemy tiles that are coming down, you can also get these little egg pieces that are coming down. You can get a bottom of an egg or a top of an egg. If you get a bottom of the egg, it just simply lays on the screen. You can put all type of enemy tiles on top of the bottom of that egg. And then when you finally get a top of the egg, you can place it on top of that stack, and it just sort of condenses it all down in one little swift motion there. And when it does that, you're going to hatch a Yoshi. The more enemy tiles you have between the bottom of the egg and the top of the egg, the bigger the Yoshi is going to be, which the more points you're going to get out of it. And if you're playing multiplayer, you actually get to punish the other player for your Yoshis that you get. But when playing through the levels like this in Game Type B, you're not going to get like a bonus for the Yoshis. It's just going to simply help you clear out all of the enemy tiles on your little game screen here. It does keep a tally in the bottom right hand corner of how many Yoshis you got in that particular level, as well as how long it takes you to defeat that level, and you simply clear the level out by just simply getting rid of all the enemy tiles inside the level. Just matching them up endlessly, and sometimes it can take a little while and you're just simply waiting for the right tiles to come down, and that can get a little frustrating because it's like, does the game actually like purposely give you the right tiles? Is it truly randomized? Do they purposely like hold some back from you sometimes? I don't know, but it does sometimes feel like the game like purposely gives me the right tiles to go and finish the level up, but also sometimes it feels like it's holding the correct tiles away from me if it feels like I'm finished the level too quickly in order to expand the time. I don't know, it could all just be in my head when it comes to the AI of the game, but it always did seem like if I was finishing the level really fast, it really held out on the correct tiles to give me. If I was taking forever on the level, finally we got down to the bottom of the screen, it just go ahead and throw out the correct tiles for me to finish up. I don't know, like I said, it could just be me reading too much into the AI here. But when you do finish a level, you get a little cutscene here of Mario riding Yoshi. He comes down to the front and he eats the little item that's out in front of him. And the items do vary. Sometimes it's like a little mushroom from Mario, or like a flower from Mario, or a coin, or a star. Sometimes it's just like little fruits like a peach, or a berry, or an apple, or a little thing of grapes. But eventually you get to the end where it's going to be a P block from Mario. And when you get to the P block of Mario, the item doesn't change anymore after that point. That's considered the end of the game, and that begins at level 28. And like I said, our goal was to get to level 28, but the levels are going to progressively get harder and harder throughout the game. And the biggest way to increase the difficulty is just increasing the number of tiles you start with at the beginning of the game to make it so much more chaotic for you when you very first start the game. When it's just like 1 or 2 tiles at the bottom of the screen, that's not too bad to like get the game started, get it going. But when you get into the upper 20s here, you can start off with 5 tiles in the game, and that is really intense for like the first 15-20 seconds of the game, just trying to clear these out, because if you don't clear them out fast, you will certainly die, because the speed picks up pretty darn fast in these upper levels as well. So you got to get them cleared out just as quick as possible. And it is very difficult in these later levels, and you don't get like a continue or anything like that. So if you die, you go all the way back to level 5 to journey through the game again. And so there's a lot of pressure on you when you're in the upper 20s to make sure you do it right. Outside the increased difficulty by simply increasing the speed, increasing the number of tiles you start with, there's not going to be a lot of gameplay changes between level 1 and level 28. But I did go all the way through level 28 and actually went a few levels beyond that. I think I went through level 32 on here just to make sure the items didn't change and the internet wasn't wrong. But the P block just continued showing up as a reward every screen after that, and I eventually died somewhere in the 30s after that as well. But honestly, if I hadn't played Yoshi so much growing up and continued playing it in part of my adult life as well, just simply that multiplayer competition, this game would have been a heck of a lot harder than it was for me. And I think it's going to be difficult for most players to get to the point where they can actually get the P block consistently in order to finish the game. But it's also these type of games that aren't really like rewarding to finish either, because when you get to the end and you just simply get the same, reward over and over and over, you don't ever actually have the joy of finishing the game. You don't get like a end credit scene, you don't get like an end cut scene, you get nothing special. What they should have done after like level 28, when you're not going to get any more prizes, give you a little cut scene, give you a little closing scene, finish the game off, and then let players who want to continue on beyond that for literally no reward continue on just to see what, which level they can get. I like how like Dr. Mario did it. Like Dr. Mario, after like level 20, he gave you like a little cutscene, the little aliens in the tree, a little spaceship coming down, beaming them back up. And if you want to continue on beyond that to get like a high score or see how many levels you can go through, by all means you could, but the game officially ended at level 20. And I feel like Yoshi should have done something similar to that, because games shouldn't just simply go on forever like this. Everybody likes an end point so they can say like, I finished this game, I got the credits, I got an end cutscene, I got something for all of my hard work, because otherwise it just sort of feels pointless, because you went through all that time and you really didn't get anything for it except for a high score or the highest number of levels you got to, and you could brag about it to your friends, you sort of have a competition that way. But the game has a built-in multiplayer, so if you're going to do competition, you're just simply going to do the multiplayer competition. That's way more fun, way more action heavy, and spur of the moment. I mean, puzzle games and multiplayer, it's like it's a match made in heaven, honestly. And so if you're going to play Yoshi and you want to actually have a ton of fun with it, my recommendation, just play the NES version, because you can play multiplayer right in there. You can play it on the Switch as well, so you have the handheld capabilities as well. It's in color, you got the multiplayer aspect. I mean, everything is right there for you, good to go. Honestly, because it's on the Switch now with the multiplayer capabilities of handheld, I can't imagine a lot of people going back and playing the Game Boy version of Yoshi, because it is the inferior version compared to the NES. And with the NES so readily available, why play the Game Boy one? And it sounds like I'm really giving Yoshi a negative review here, but that's not it at all. I actually really did enjoy this game. I loved the Yoshi puzzle mechanic. I loved the design of it. I loved the music in it. I love pretty much everything about this game except for it not giving you a definitive ending. But it just seems like there's a better version out there, and I just can't help but recommend the better version to most players. But what do you all think? Do you enjoy the game Yoshi? Is it one of your top puzzle games of all time? Or do you hate the game Yoshi and you think it's one of the worst puzzle games of all time? Let me know in the comments down below. And if there's a game you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of that game in the comments as well, and I'll get to that as soon as I possibly can. But if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above, and as always, go out there, find a great game to play, just simply have a great rest of the day.